Good afternoon, everyone. So today we get to talk and meet Kirsten Duncan. She's quite a remarkable lady. I have not met her in person, but we've had wonderful conversations on the phone and also connecting here on Instagram. That is the power of this time. I don't even want to start telling you all of the yumminess that goes on in her life and the things that she strategically has placed in her life to overcome some significant hardships. Hey guys, thank you guys so much for showing up here. I'm looking forward. Kirsten's never done this for us. So let's give her a little bit, hello there. Let's give her a little bit of grace. Once she sees me that I'm live, I will be able to tell that she's in the room, and then I'll welcome her to join and share the screen with me. I hope today's going great for you guys. It was a Trader Joe's visit for me this morning. There she is. Let's go, Kirsten. Hey, Kirsten.
Hey, Shay, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Fantastic, thank you.
Good. I'm turning up the volume so I could hear you. Look great.
Well, I had to have a reason to shower and put on something besides my pajamas.
Nice. Me too. I like the art behind you, by the way. Ooh.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Kirsten, I just was telling everybody, we haven't even had the pleasure of meeting each other face to face as yet. We've only had the pleasure of having, for me, a heartfelt and beautiful conversation where I was like, this is a lady who I will be friends with.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Can
it's
you
so fun to see you face to face and actually have a conversation.
I know. Kirsten, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you turn up your volume just a little bit?
Yep.
Please? Yay.
That help?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, Kirsten, we're just going to jump in here. I met you via a common friend of ours, Sam Willing, and just kind of like we weren't even introduced per se as much as I realized that she followed you and you followed her, and I love Sam. So I was like, well, then I need to follow this lady, Kirsten. So I jump on over there and I start learning a lot of things about you right away. Now, I know you've probably told your story a gazillion times, but I would love it if you would step us back to, because we want to get into how you came up with Unexpected Launch. And I believe that this is all a part of that. So can you take us back to your marriage? It exploded in brilliant ways. Can you unpack that a little bit for us, please?
It did. So I think I'm going to start. I'm going to start somewhat in the middle of the story, and that is when my husband came out. So we had been married for 24 years. I was looking forward to celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary.
Yay!
And I had been on a week-long business trip and came home. I was unpacking my suitcase, and Matt came in and he sat down in the armchair, and right away I just knew something was off because that was pretty unusual. And he literally just started with, Kirsten, I'm gay. And I don't remember a lot of that evening. I just remember.
What? You don't remember a lot of that evening? You don't remember a lot of the evening where your life just exploded in front of your face?
I don't remember a lot of that whole year, I have to say.
Yeah, that's real. Can I ask you a question real quick, Kirsten?
Yeah.
You remember those words coming at you, right?
Yeah.
Do you recall what you felt when those words came your way? Like, Kirsten, I'm gay. Was this brand new news for us? B, was there any inclination that you thought that this was the case?
So on the one hand, I was shocked,
sure,
but also not shocked because I had suspected for a very long time that Matt was gay. And so in that moment, I think the first thing I thought, and I don't even know if I said it out loud or if I just said it in my head, was, I knew it. And so there was this moment of, I knew at that moment that my life as I knew it and loved it was over. I mean, there was no question that my life was going to be very different. It was going to fall apart in ways that I could never imagine.
So the part of you that was like, I knew.
Yeah.
how did you know? Or what would have given you that feeling? Because now we've lived, now we're in 2020, and we've now met women who have been married to men who are gay. Like in the 80s and 90s, I knew of no one who was married to a man who was gay, and it was something that came out. But surely in the early 2000s, we started to explore and see this happening more. So the thing that I think that we all sit back who are not married to gay men, we go, how did you not know? Like, what was the end? Like, what was that thing that made you go, ah, I knew it?
Yeah. So I will say that somewhat early on in our marriage, I came across a website that gave me pause.
Mm.
And I asked Matt about it, and he shared the reasoning behind why he was looking at that website. And I bought it because I wanted to believe it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you that we were married for 17 years after that. And I just always had the suspicion in the back of my mind. It's something that I asked him about a couple of times, and he reassured me that he wasn't gay and that he loved me and we were going to be married for the rest of my life. And though in my gut I knew, I didn't want to believe it because I couldn't picture not being a family of 5, not being married to Matt. I loved being his wife. I loved being and I'm using air quotes, but a traditional family unit.
I get it.
So I stuffed all those feelings. I never once shared my suspicion with another person. And in some ways, I think I made a bargain with myself that he might be gay or he might be bi, but there are so many wonderful things within our relationship and family that I'm willing to accept that.
Ooh, I was hoping you would say this because you said that in the car when we had our, and I thought, do you know, those words stayed with me when you said, you know what, Shay, it wasn't like this great intimacy that existed there sexually, but I was like, I had looked at my life and I said, I have a lot of great things in my life, and I'm willing to sacrifice this area because I like our family unit. I like how we work. I like our partnership. I like the children we're raising. That was significant for me when you said that, because I guess I felt the profundity of the sacrifice. That's a lot. And I don't know if anyone should sacrifice all of that,
Well,
I don't know.
It's funny because I think about that statement now, and I've learned a lot about myself and I've grown. Would I make that same choice now? Probably not. But at the time, that's where I was at. And, I'm so proud of Matt for coming out.
That's what I want to talk about.
I just, he's living his truth, and he deserves that. And he deserves to live in who he is and be so proud of that. And for that, I'm so proud of him. And, at the same time, he released me and gave me the freedom to explore myself in a very different way. And so I'm on the one hand sort of heartbroken, but also grateful.
No, that's what I did want to talk about, that because I've never met Matt, but I just think to myself, yay, Matt. Like I always think about the other person's perspective in any story that I'm kind of navigating. And I'm like, let's think about what type of structures and impediments must have existed in his heart and his life for him to feel like the only option he had was to live a lie, to build a lie, to build a life that was on a lie. My heart goes out to the Matts of the world, women, men, whoever are in those situations, where I'm always like, what part did we as a society contribute to making them feel like you better live this lie? Because if you don't, you will die. Because I think that's the only reason why you would live such a stratified life, Yeah. I think it's very alienating. Again, I'm just going to take it to me real quick, because that's the only way that when people are living their lives, we have to take those modalities, those little things, and throw them in our life and see what we could have done, or how we felt, or when something like that reared its head. I just think of being in boarding school situations where I wasn't exactly like everybody around me, but I clearly understood what I needed to do to be successful and live well here. So there's certain parts of myself that I didn't share with them, and I didn't explore, I didn't talk about, because they wouldn't be well received within the parameters. And that had nothing to do with my sexuality. And yet I felt like really hampered and shut down. And I'm just thinking how those years must have felt to Matt, how heavy and hard they must have felt to him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that authenticity is something that we're becoming more aware of now, and I think that as a society, as we have more conversations, as we talk more about it, which is one of the reasons I'm really happy to be talking with you today, because I think people are afraid that they're the only one who feels that way. They don't know who else to talk to. They don't know where to turn. And there's shame and there's fear. And, I think about, you talked about this a little bit earlier, when Matt was in college in the 80s, that was not something that people talked about,
Yeah.
sexuality, homosexuality. And I don't think that he had the words, the framework, the support. I think that religion plays a factor. I think
Huge.
family plays a factor. There's so many things, and to your point, whether it's sexuality or something else that we're living with, we feel that we need to be inauthentic so that we can fit in, so that we're accepted. And the more that I find that I open my mouth and other people open their mouths, the more we can be authentic with each other and actually create that deep connection.
What was the first time you remember in recent years sharing a very kind of authentic, intimate part of yourself with someone, and hearing a response that was like, me too?
I before Matt came out, I lived a life that looked pretty perfect on the outside. And when I read Brene Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection, I was pretty sure that she wrote that book for me. I looked in the foreword to see, was I listed?
I love it. Right. Because it was so spot on.
I had created this perfect, I was the perfect wife, the perfect mom. I drove the carpools. I made the dinners. I was the perfect colleague, the volunteer. And so I crafted this life that from the outside.
You were the person I wanted to be when I was in that space. And I knew, but I always knew that I wasn't.
Oh, well, and let me tell you, it was talk about being inauthentic. I think I was being pretty perfect and busy so that I could shove down those feelings of the concerns that I had about my marriage.
Right.
And so when I first started opening up about what was really going on, and it took a while, what I found is that people were so willing to open up and share something about themselves. I mean, people would say to me, I've never told anybody this before, because I think you can create that space of connection and lack of judgment and support and
safety. When you share from that space, you give other people permission to do the same, and they don't have to feel like who's watching.
Yeah.
Isn't that for me, that's the most magical moments we create, where we create that safe spot where they show up and give you all of who they are.
Yeah.
And you can have that heart to heart connection.
Yeah. I mean, because let's be honest, none of our lives are perfect. We all
my God.
We've all got messy stuff. And
like the other side of this room, where there are clothes that are folded out of the dryer but are still sitting on the couch. How about that one?
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you remember any part of your story that you remember feeling very scared about sharing, but then sharing it for the first time, and what that response looked like?
So to be honest, I felt a lot of shame around having this intuition that Matt was gay and yet doing nothing about it. That took me a long time to share with people on a wide level, because I felt a sense of letting my children down. Did I not protect them? Did I not create the right environment for them? Was that the right thing to do for myself? And so I felt a lot of shame around that, and I didn't quite know how to talk about it. And once I did start talking about it, all I was met with was love and support.
It's kind of like when I was speaking to Brother Richard, who wrote that poem Lockdown. He's like, it's amazing. When you speak the thing that you fear, we dismantle it. We break it down. So you are speaking your biggest fear. And in the speaking of it, that's where it got broken. That's where it was met with love and support. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then tell me this, how does one go from experiencing that, right? And in your bio, it also says, while this is happening, one son is going off to college. Another son is in a severe vehicular accident. Was he the driver? Was someone hit him? Like he was the driver?
No, he was the passenger. He was in the front seat, not wearing a seatbelt, and the driver was severely intoxicated, and they hit a wall going about 50 miles an hour. And so he was not wearing a seatbelt. He was launched into the windshield.
Did the driver live?
Yeah, my son Aiden was the only one who suffered any injuries. So thankfully the driver and another individual who was in the car were totally fine.
So, which I'm glad about, but here I just want to paint the picture for people who you are at this moment. You are this beautiful businesswoman. You have this very perfect looking family and life that you have been curating and protecting at all ends. You have these 3 beautiful sons. Your life is in the middle of tremendous change because of what we've just spoken about. Husbands come out. Son is going to college. Other son has a serious accident in a vehicular accident, and he's injured beyond belief. What do you do in that moment that allows you to pick up? How do you pick up from that space? Because that seems like a lot that could take you out. Tell us about what your world looked like, I guess.
I don't know that I really thought about it. All I thought was, I have 3 children who were at that point 14, 16, and 18. I needed them to know that I was okay so that they were going to be okay. And so I tried to keep, as did Matt. I have to say, I did not do this alone. Matt and I were very much partners in helping navigate this for our children. We did it very much together. I tried to keep things normal. And I think, to be honest, I was just in survival mode. So my days focused on getting up and making breakfast and making lunches. Then I would work all day. I'm really good at compartmentalizing. So I put in a full day at work. My kids would come home. It would be making dinner. It would be doing whatever else. My youngest son was playing basketball, so it would be taking him to basketball games. And so I think it was literally survival, one day at a time, just getting through it, trying to be there for my children, reassuring them how loved they were, that they were going to be okay. And so I don't think that I really thought about it in the moment. It was just one foot in front of another, because there were so many things that were unraveling. And, in the midst of that, we sold our house and we moved, finding a rental, learning to live by myself really for the first time ever. But
right.
Again, it was my children who, I thank God for my children. They kept me going. They were my shining light. And I have to tell you that they are 3 of the most insightful individuals. They've given me some advice that has given me such pause and caused me to change how I live my life. I mean, they're incredible. And so I think we all kept each other going.
Okay, we all kept each other going. Tell me this, how did you go from that to unexpected launch?
So when Matt first came out, I have such a vivid memory. I was sitting in our old house and I sat down and I Googled gay husband, and I came across a number of resources that at the time they did not resonate with me. This was right after Matt came out, and there was some bitterness, some resentment, some anger, and that I did not feel any of those things. And so I literally closed the lid of my computer, walked away, and I didn't think about talking with another individual who had been in my situation for about 3.5 years. And I think part of it was that I just wasn't ready to hear somebody else's story. I was still trying to process my own. But then about a little over a year ago, I was ready to start searching for stories like my own. And again, I found the same information. Primarily, it was, again, resentment, anger. There was some of the resources had a little bit of a religious bent, and just none of that resonated with me. And so one of my favorite, I'm a podcast junkie. Anybody
Me
who
too.
knows me. So I say all the time, oh, I listened to this podcast and I heard.
Yes. They're awesome.
But I was listening to one of my favorites, which is Guy Raz, How I Built This.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
He's fantastic. And he was talking with the founder of Glossier, which is a makeup company.
I see it on Instagram, girl.
Yep. And before she started Glossier, she had a blog, Into the Gloss, and it was just interviewing people about what was in their bathroom cabinets.
I love that.
And I don't know why, but this idea came to me that the resources that I'm looking for do not exist. And so I'm going to create them. And so it was.
Can I tell you something real quick? You just said what Toni Morrison said. Toni Morrison said, if there is a book that you want to read and you can't find it, write it. Then write that book.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really where it started. And I'll tell you the reason I wanted to start it. When I was just going through the early phases, and well, actually even still today, trying to figure myself out, trying to figure my path forward, I read every book I could get my hand on. I listened to podcasts, and it was through the reading and listening of stories of others who had been through unimaginable life change, whether it be death or illness, divorce. In reading their stories, I learned they went on to do some incredible things and discover incredible things about themselves. And I thought, well, if they've done it, I can do it too.
And truthfully, is there any story, sorry to interrupt you, but is there any person who's doing anything of significance that doesn't have great hardship and difficulty? You know, I often say to people, the stories that we most want to hear and the stories that change our lives are the stories that are the hardest to have lived. Those are the only stories that bring change.
Yeah.
The story doesn't move forward if it's like, and then the apple pie was done. That's not how it moves forward, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just felt that if I wasn't finding out there what I was looking for, other people were I know I've talked to other people in my situation, and I wanted to come out my story and others' stories, not from a place of shame, not from a place of anger, bitterness, resentment. I wanted to showcase the incredible things that people were doing in their marriages, in their life, in their situation, because of, not despite, but because of the things that had happened to them. And Shay, when I first started out, I was planning on just having a podcast all focused around families who had been in a mixed orientation marriage where one of the spouses is gay. And I found that people were very willing to talk to me on the phone, but hesitant to do a podcast, because who wants to talk about sexuality? Who wants to talk about uncomfortable things? Nobody, or very few people.
Right. Especially if we're not at a place where we want to risk the vulnerability, right? Because it's exposure. It's exposure. You can't hide anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what I drew upon is that when I was healing and finding inspiration in other stories, they weren't people who had been through a mixed orientation marriage. They were people who had been through death, illness, and I still gained something from their story. And so I thought, it doesn't matter why you're suffering. We all suffer. And the journey to healing is it doesn't matter what the reason. And so I felt that people could find connection in all sorts of different stories. And what I wanted to focus on was what gave individuals strength, what gave them hope, what are the unexpected gifts that came out of this journey that they wouldn't have otherwise had, because I wanted to create something hopeful, something inspiring. I didn't want to focus on and stay mired in the tragedy, the grief, the loss. Yes, we have to acknowledge that, and we have to embrace that and work through that.
But we can't live there.
No, we can't live there. And
forever, indefinitely.
No.
We may be there. We may be journeying through it, but it can't be our destination, right?
Yeah. And, as I've interviewed individuals on the podcast, everybody has something incredible to say. And there are so many similarities in journeys of healing, regardless of the event that caused it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like you're giving me, I'm writing, I'm taking notes, taking notes. What is an unexpected gift that you've gotten out of your journey of mixed orientation marriage?
Oh, the list is so long.
Give us a couple.
Okay. So, before Matt came out, I was a super cautious person, didn't step out of sort of my box, my square, pretty fearful, pretty anxious. And I was in Brooklyn, walking around by myself, got lost, as I always
Brooklyn.
do.
Yes.
Love Brooklyn.
My joint.
And I found this incredible bookstore, and I found a little book, Do One Thing Every Day That Makes You Afraid. And I jumped into that book, and I've done things like putting myself in the front line of a hip hop dance class. And let me tell you, I don't dance.
Wait, wait, I want people to pause and hear that, because that is no joke. Can I tell you a little story that will make you laugh?
Yes.
So years ago, I have a friend who moved here from Brooklyn to Charlotte, North Carolina. And her husband worked at Goldman Sachs at the time, and they ran in pretty poshy circles. And they moved down here, and she was really into Zumba. Zumba had just become the rage. And she was like, do you want to go to a Zumba class with me? And let me just say real quick, I was like, I don't know anything about Zumba, but I'm about to out-black all of these girls up in this place and bring it. So Shay and the girl who's inviting me, she happens to be Black. So I was like, girl, we are about to kill this. Now she knows Zumba. I don't know Zumba, but I'm thinking out-black them. I'm about to do it. So this class of Zumba is all like 50-something-year-old stay-at-home moms who have like diamond rings that are like as big as my watch, like, and I was like, oh, it's about to go down. So I stood in the front. Hubris. Let's learn this word, hubris, because this is what Shay has. I stood in the front, and then my teacher started playing the music and pet out. These ladies started dropping it like it was hot and like they were video vixens. And Shay was like, quickly, I just stepped politely on over to the back. So it's a bold thing to put yourself on the front line on a hip hop class. So go on.
Well, I decided if I'm going to do it, I might as well just put myself up there in the front. So,
right. I love you. How'd it go, girl?
Oh, done crazy things like paragliding, and I've traveled a lot by myself to different countries where I've gotten lost in Rome. I've gotten lost in Paris. I've gotten lost in Mexico, Panama. I mean, it's so those are things I would have never done. That there was something. What I will tell you is my worst fears in life came true. My
Oh.
worst fears were that I would be divorced
Mm.
and that something would happen to one of my children. With all of my fears having come true, I felt that I had nothing more to lose or to be afraid of. So I threw myself into doing crazy things like starting a podcast. Never blogged, never podcasted. And that's another gift, is this podcast has connected me with individuals who I would have never otherwise met, who have touched my life in ways that I can't even begin to express. I've learned so much about other people, and I cannot, there are days that I wake up and I think, I cannot believe that people I've never met are sharing their worst moment of their life with me.
That's how I feel.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's power. It's actually, it feels holy. It feels sacred. It feels like this is special. This is very special, and it's not lost on me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So your worst fears had come to pass. Here you were, you were a divorced woman. So you create, out of this gift, does unexpected launch? How do we get to unexpected launch from that? Is that one of the things you stepped into that you were afraid of?
Yeah, telling my story, I will tell you so when I recorded my first, so when I launched the podcast, I decided.
When was that again? A year ago?
Last April was when I launched it.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that my story would be the first one. And I can't tell you how many times I recorded that thing, and I shared it with people, and they said, "Oh, you don't sound like yourself. You sound really nervous." Like, I am so nervous. I'm on a podcast.
I'm scared shitless.
The most, like, the worst of my life. And I will tell you that publishing that first one was absolutely terrifying.
Oh,
and
who held your hand? Who held your hand and sat? Who held your hand and sat in that space with you? Who were your people in the bunker?
Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, Shay, I am blessed with family and friends. And who I have to tell you, who held my hand and told me to go for it? It was Matt and our 3 boys, who said, "You go for this and you do this."
I like Matt. I want to meet him one day.
He's a terrific guy.
Your boys sound like, when you're talking about the insightfulness of your own children and them telling you things that you've implemented in your life and changed your life. I mean, for me, that's like the highest hope. I hope that for my child too, as she grows up. Yeah. Tell me, what is something that has surprised you the most during this period? It's just been like shocking.
How much I can actually do. So when we first moved, I ended up building a little bit of furniture. So I decided, well, I'm going to go to Target and get myself a cute pink tool set. So I've built some furniture. I've learned how to take care of a house on my own.
Wait a minute. Wait. You built furniture?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. It's like, from a box. I'm not wood carving or anything like that.
You're not whittling nope. Over there on the side.
Not yet, but who knows? Who knows that maybe in the future.
Kirsten, I love you. Keep going. So how much you can keep going?
I guess that there's something really empowering about being able to do things on your own. And I never had to. I never thought about it. I was so comfortable in my life. I was so comfortable in my relationships that there were so many things I didn't even think about doing. And so I think I was pretty surprised that I could travel by myself, that I could navigate. I get lost in my own town. So
I am directionally challenged. Like I always tell people, I was like, think of the most unintelligent person you can think of, multiply that by 100, and that's what I am with directions. Like, don't give me stuff like go north on it. Listen, everything in front of me feels like north. So I need to know, do I take a left or a right at Chick-fil-A? I need landmarks.
I need landmarks.
yeah. The gas station, caddy corner. Like, yeah, I understand. So it's a bold thing too for people who are directionally challenged. It actually is a very scary thing to be lost. It feels very scary. It feels unearthing, right? And so it's amazing when you are bold enough to go, you know what? You go to the end of the fear And at the end of the fear, you're not dead because you were lost.
That's right.
You're just uncomfortable. And
That's
you
right.
allow yourself to be uncomfortable, right? You go, okay,
Right.
I know I'm trying to get to Trevi Fountain. I don't know exactly how to get to Trevi Fountain. I went to boarding school in Rome, so I know that area.
Oh,
And I'm not sure how to get to Piazza di Spagna, but I am gonna try to see the Spanish Steps today.
mm-hmm.
And I'm scared, but I know at the end of my fear, I'm not dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I have to tell you, so speaking of Rome, one day I set out, each morning I would map out where I was going, which neighborhood, and I boldly set off, and I was headed to, I can't even remember where. I arrived where I thought I was supposed to be. I looked up at the building and it didn't match the picture. So I literally sat down on the corner in Rome to thumb through the book to figure out where I was. However, I found myself in this incredible neighborhood that I would have never gone to otherwise. And I had a fantastic day. And I have to tell you that I was walking around with such purpose that I had people coming up to me asking me for directions.
Yes.
I thought, yeah, you probably don't want to rely on me.
Girl, power. That is, oh, she's like, I just was possessing such, like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going somewhere. That people even felt the energy. They're like, could you tell me where Trevi Fountain is? That, Kirsten, that's brilliant. Oh my gosh. What has there been anything during this process that was particularly harder than you anticipated, or it was a thing that is difficult that you couldn't have anticipated?
I think the most challenging part of this journey has been loneliness. I went from a family where, Matt is a super outgoing person, very active, very talkative, 3 boys. I went from this family where there was always connection. We were always doing something, to the weeks that I didn't have the boys, because we split 50-50. The boys would travel back and forth every other week. Mm-hmm. And those weeks that I was by myself, and even still, like our oldest went to his dad's last night, and even watching him walk away and shut the door, like that's still hard.
Still hard. So the loneliness. What do you do in the loneliness? And what do you do with the loneliness?
Well, in the beginning, it was soul crushing. And I remember calling, I have a very good friend, Carrie, who she had been through something very traumatic years before. And so she was my beacon. She was the person who she kept pulling me and pushing me. And I remember calling her one day and I said, I am so anxious that I have not a single plan for the entire weekend. My kids aren't around. My friends are all busy. I'm going to have a panic attack. And she said, you just need to sit down on your couch and you just need to sit with that loneliness and you're going to make it. And I remember getting to Sunday night thinking, oh, thank God the weekend is over. And oh my God, I made it through without seeing a single person. And so I learned just to sit with it. And over time, what I've come to find out is it's been.
Say it again. You paused.
It's been. Sorry, my phone is. I'm low on battery.
Okay.
I just.
Do you need to plug it in?
I will in 1 second.
Okay.
I'll finish this thought. I just think we have to learn how to sit with ourselves, and it's really uncomfortable. And it was those moments when I was sitting by myself that I started to figure out, what did I want to do? And what did I enjoy doing? And who did I want to be with? And so I think that though that was so painful, it was incredibly important to go through that.
That is amazing. Tell me, through this, what has been, I guess, I'm trying to think of other people in their lives, because, we're all at different points on this journey, at different points of heartbreak, heartache, life-changing, transformation. What are some things that you have done in your own life that have, one, I love sitting with the loneliness. What are some things, other tools that you have implemented in your own life that have helped you carve out meaning and purpose during this time?
Focusing on others. I did a lot of volunteering. I did
Mm-hmm.
worked with Habitat for Humanity. I worked with some homeless shelters in Seattle. And I have to tell you, getting out and doing things for others and taking the focus off myself and my worries was incredibly powerful. And it was grounding and a reminder that I'm not so important.
Yes.
I read a lot. I journaled a lot. I listened to podcasts. I meditated. I traveled. So there were so many different things. I
Mm-hmm.
threw myself into yoga. There were a lot of different things that served different purposes, and they were all really important. And connecting with friends. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of that before I was divorced. My key focus was my kids, my marriage,
Mm-hmm.
my job, and I didn't really make a lot of room for friends. And so friends has been something that was so healing, and listening to other people and their experiences and their encouragement. And I have an incredible friend who still to this day sends me a card in the mail every single week. And it's, just all of those little things and making those connections. Yeah,
I
I'm
send
very
letters,
lucky.
but that is pretty amazing.
I know. She's incredible.
As you're talking, I was just like, man, this is a tremendous, tremendous growth journey. And I'm just I just keep thinking about other people in their lives. I love that you talked about service. I love that you talked about kind of getting out of yourself. All of the things that you listed, it seemed to be things that you had not done. It's like you gave yourself permission to do a whole bunch of things that you hadn't done before, hadn't even thought you could or would or should do. So I just want people to have those strong takeaways. Doing things that are uncomfortable and are new and are stretching for you. Those are the places that seem to bring you a lot of help during this part. And it seems it seems like the antithesis to reason, right? Because when you're in pain, you're like, comfort, comfort, comfort. I want comfort, comfort, comfort. Yet all the things you're telling us are things that stretched you. And along that stretching, I guess, plane, you're sharing with us like, hey, I learned a lot of stuff about myself, a lot of clear stuff about who I wanted to be, where I was going, and what I would do. And that's amazing. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, that's where I learned the most about myself. And when something felt uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
I jumped into it with both feet. I went running right into it. If I was afraid of something, I thought, there's something that I need to learn here, and I need to spend some time thinking about it. There's a lesson here. And so I tried to look for the lesson and the gift each time something happened that wasn't what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. What would you want to tell yourself, the you that you are today? What would you want to tell yourself, the young lady who was, 6 years into her marriage? What would you want to tell that young lady?
Shit's going to get real, and you're going to do amazing on the other side.
That makes me want to cry. That's beautiful.
I wouldn't, this experience, though it's been so life-changing, I wouldn't change anything that I did any step along the way. There's nothing I would change. My life is beautiful in so many ways. There are things that still bring me to tears, but yet I've got a beautiful life, and I wouldn't have this life if I didn't make the steps that I did leading up to this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I always, first of all, I could keep asking more and more questions, but I'm like, stop. I always, as I bring them to an end, I ask some of these questions that James Lipton used to ask on Inside the Actor Studio. I just really loved it. And I think I told you, it was like it's like this great, wonderful, low budget talk show, but it was my jam. So I want to ask you a couple of those questions. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, the rain.
Ooh. Mm-mm-mm. Rain. What sound or noise do you really can't like? You don't really like at all. Do you hate is what he asks.
Oh gosh. Traffic.
Ooh, that is a horrible sound, isn't it? It really is. What's your favorite word?
Love.
Mm. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
That is a good one. It is a good one. And
I mean, just bring it out.
It is a good one. Yeah, I've asked that question multiple times now, and that's always up there. And by the way, you sit in good company because that was Matt Damon's answer on Inside the Actor Studio. He was like, "It's a verb, it's a noun, it's a bridge, it's a connector." He like it basically holds every part of speech. Is what he was.
Broad.
Yes. Oh my God, it was good. It was great. What if heaven exists? What do you want God to say when you get there?
Welcome home.
Welcome home. Last question from me. So Unexpected Launch is a pretty remarkable podcast. I've become a listener to it and I subscribed. I want to know, what do you want the world to get from Unexpected Launch? If there was a way that you could package it up and say, this is what I want it to bring to you. What is that, Kirsten?
I want this podcast to bring joy, to bring hope, inspiration, the feeling that nobody is alone. There is no story that is too messy to be told. By telling your story, you grow in ways unimaginable, and you create a pathway for those who are struggling and following in your footsteps. And so mostly I want community and hope.
Community and hope. God, Kirsten, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I know
Shay.
that's exactly what you're creating.
Thank you. Thank you.
What are you going to do for the rest of the day?
I'm gonna work.
I know you are.
I'm taking a little break from work.
I appreciate you taking that break with us. Kirsten, you have a beautiful day, and I can't wait to meet you face to face.
Thanks, you too, Shay. Thank you so much for our conversation today. It was fantastic. I loved it and look forward to more.
Thank you. Me too. Bye,
Thank
Kirsten.
you. Bye.